Alright, in this video we're going to be talking about multiplying and dividing with fractions. In the previous video we talked about adding and subtracting with fractions. In that video we talked about the need for when you're adding or subtracting fractions, you have to find the least common denominator. List out your multiples and find the least common denominator. Of course you can do it by finding a common denominator. Multiplying and dividing fractions, it's a lot easier. Why? When we're multiplying and dividing fractions, we don't have to find a common denominator. All you have to do is multiply, like in a problem like this, you multiply the numerator by the numerator, the denominator by the denominator. So this first problem, number one, we have two proper fractions. Proper fractions, which means the numerator is less than the denominator. So I'm going to multiply 1/2 times 3/4. 1/2 times 3/4. So 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 4 is 8. Now every time we have an answer, now this is our product, every time we have an answer with that includes fractions, we need to see if we need to simplify. We cannot simplify 3/8, so that is my answer. Again, multiplying with fractions is really easy. On proper fractions, multiply the numerator by numerator, denominator by denominator, and see if you can simplify. If you can't, circle your answer, and you are done. On the problem below, I have a mixed number multiplied by a proper fraction. This one involves one extra step, but if it's not that hard, we're going to turn our mixed number into an improper fraction by using MAD, multiply, add, denominator stays the same. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So 1/2 becomes 3/2. They are equivalent to one another. Now I can multiply my numerator and numerator, which is 9. 2 times 4 is 8. Now what did I get as an answer? An improper fraction, so I need to simplify that. So I'm going to do it up here and divide 9 by 8. Divide the numerator by the denominator. Not 8 will go into 9 once. 1 times 8 is 8. Subtract. Now this becomes my new whole number. Let's do it in black. Maybe you see it better. I can't see. There's 1. Now my remainder, which also is 1, becomes my new numerator, and my denominator does not change. And I can't simplify 1 1/8 anymore, so that is my answer, my product. So 1/2 times 3/4, what did I do? Turn my 1/2, my mixed number, into an improper fraction using MAD, multiply, add, denominator stays the same. 1/2 becomes 3/2 times 3/4. At that point, I multiply numerator by numerator, denominator by denominator, and I get 9/8, which is an improper fraction. I need to simplify it, and I get 1 1/8. So that is my answer. All right. Next problem. We have 3 3/4 times 5/2. I have a mixed number with an improper fraction. This one's kind of easy. I'm going to turn my 3 3/4 using MAD. I'm going to erase this. 3 3/4. Into an improper fraction. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 3 is 15 over 4 times 5/2. At this point, I can multiply my numerators. 15 times 5 is 75. And then 2 times 4 is 8. Now, I'm not done yet because that is an improper fraction. I can simplify it, so I'm going to divide 75 by 8. 8 won't go into 7, will go into 75 9 times. 9 times 8 is 72. I subtract, and I get 3. So my new answer is 9. I'll do this in black. Maybe be able to see a little better. 9, because the quotient is your whole number. The 3, my remainder, becomes my new numerator, and the denominator stays the same. So my answer is 9 3/8. So what did I do? I make sure they are both fractions or improper fractions, multiply the numerator by numerator, denominator by denominator, and then simplify if needed. Excuse me. On the last one, we have two improper fractions. Mixed numbers. We need to turn them into an improper fraction. How? Using MAD, multiply, add, denominator stays the same. So 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. The other one is the same thing, so they're both 3/2. Multiply them together, numerator by numerator, you get 9. 2 times 2 is 4. Improper fraction, Need to simplify it. How many times will 4 go into 9? 2 times, with 1 as a remainder, and the denominator stays the same, so that is my new product, my new answer, 2 and 1/4. So that is how you multiply fractions. Numerator by numerator, denominator by denominator, simplify if needed. If they are a mixed number, turn them into an improper fraction, and then, of course, then you multiply top and top and bottom. All right, so dividing fractions. Rule for dividing fractions: when dividing fractions, take the reciprocal, which kind of means to flip, of the second fraction, then multiply. So if we start off with the division problem, we're going to ultimately turn it into a multiplication problem, which we've already gone over. So let's look at our initial problem. We have 1/2 divided by 1/2. Now 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. Let's see what happens when we divide it. So we have 1/2 divided by 1/2. So we're going to keep this first fraction the same. We're going to turn our division problem into multiplication. And then we're going to find the reciprocal, which means to flip, of the second one. And then we can multiply. So we started off with 1/2 divided by 1/2. We're going to keep the first fraction. We're going to change the second, or the operation, the division, into multiplication. And then we're going to flip, find the reciprocal of the fraction, 1/2, and you flip it, it becomes 2/1. And so 1 times 2 is 2, and then 2 times 1 is 2. So our answer is 1. So 1/2 divided by 1/2 is 1. The quotient is 1. So again, in a division problem with fractions, we have to turn it into multiplication. How do we do that? We keep the first fraction as is, assuming it's a proper and improper fraction. We're going to turn our division into multiplication. We find the reciprocal, or we flip the second fraction, and when you flip 1/2, it becomes 2/1. And then once you're at this point, you can then multiply it like a normal multiplication with fraction problem, top to top, bottom to bottom, and then simplify if needed. All right. Let's look at the second problem. We have 1/2 divided by 3/4. In this fraction problem, we have an issue. We have a mixed number divided by a proper fraction. 1/2 is a mixed number, so we need to turn that into an improper fraction first. Using math, 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Divided by 3/4. Once I'm at this point, then I need to keep 3/2. I'm going to rewrite it over here. 3/2. I need to change my division into multiplication. And then I need to find the reciprocal of 3/4, which is 4/3. So once I'm at 3/2 times 4/3, I know how to solve this because I turn my division problem into multiplication. 3 times 4 is 12. And 2 times 3 is 6. Now we can cross cancel, and I'll show you a video on that later if you know how to when you're multiplying fractions, but let's don't worry about that now. 3 times 4 is 12, and 2 times 3 is 6. I can simplify that. 6 will go into 12 2 times evenly, the remainder, so our answer, our quotient, is 2. So 1/2 divided by 3/4 is 2. Why? Turned our mixed number into a improper fraction. And then 3/2 divided by 3/4, so we keep the first fraction, 3/2. Turn our division into multiplication and find the reciprocal of the second fraction. 3/4 becomes 4/3. Once I'm at that point, I multiply the fractions. 3 times 4 is 12, 2 times 3 is 6, and then simplify. All right, we're going to go over 2 more problems. On this first one, I have 1/2 divided by 2/2. So I'm going to write down below 1/2. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and keep it as division now because I have a mixed number. I need to turn that into an improper fraction. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5/2. Once I'm at this point, I can go ahead and keep the first fraction, turn the division into multiplication, and find the reciprocal of 5 over 2. Now I can't find the reciprocal of 2 and 1/2. I have to turn that mixed number into an improper fraction. Okay, it's important that you realize when you're multiplying or dividing with fractions, you're going to want to turn those mixed numbers into improper fractions. So now I'm going to find the reciprocal of 5 over 2, which means to flip it. So it becomes 5 over 2 becomes 2 over 5. And at that point, I can I can multiply it. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you really fast. Now this one's a really easy one to demonstrate on. Once I have 1/2 times 2 over 5, I'm just going to go ahead and cancel those out. There's no point in me multiplying by 2 and then dividing by 2. So then I just keep this 1 over 5. And that's my answer. And let me just show you why. 1/2, I'm going to do a little darker color so you might be able to see this a little better. 1/2 times 2 over 5, still going to give me 2 over 10, and I simplify it, I'm still going to get 1/2, or 1 over 5, sorry. So how I cross cancel those, the 2 and the 2, because there's no point multiplying by 2 and then dividing by 2. But if that doesn't make sense, multiply the numerator by numerator, you get 2. And denominator by denominator, and you get 10, and you simplify, and either way you're going to get 1/5. Let me erase some of this. Alright, on our last fraction we have 2 mixed numbers. On both of these I'm going to need to turn them into improper fractions. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13 over 4. I'm going to keep it as division because I still haven't turned 1 1/4 into an improper fraction. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5 over 4. Now at this point I can turn it into keep first fraction, change the division to multiplication, and find the reciprocal, flip the second fraction after I've turned it into an improper fraction. Just like the previous one, there's no point in multiplying by 4 and dividing by 4. So my answer is going to be 13 over 5. Of course, what's the problem here? It is an improper fraction. Divide 13 by 5. 5 will go on to 13 2 times, with 3 as a remainder, and the denominator stays the same, so that is my answer. Okay, so what's the difference between division with fractions and multiplying with fractions? We need to turn that division problem into multiplication. How? You find the reciprocal of the second fraction. The only caveat to that is if you are dealing with mixed numbers, before you do anything, turn them into improper fractions. So we keep the first fraction, like in the last one. We turn 13 and 1/4 into 13 over 4, divided by 1 and 1/4 became 5/4. So we keep the first fraction, kept this one. We change our division to multiplication, and then we flip. We find the reciprocal of the second one, keep, change, flip. Once we're at that point, multiply numerator by numerator, denominator by denominator, and then simplify if needed. So, we've just gone over how to multiply and divide with fractions. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any other questions or concerns, you can email me at jhewlett@leisd.ws. Thanks.